A very good afternoon to all of you all. My name is Anil Vanvari. I'm the founder CEO of the Indian Television.com group, which also includes Animation Express, Telechakkar, Radio and Music, and several other brands. It's great to bring you another virtual roundtable this afternoon. This is the third in the series that Animation Express is conducting. The first one covered the education sector, was brought to you in partnership with Adobe. The second was about the indie game developers, and we brought it to you directly. And now the third one is the changing dynamics of brands and amid the pandemic. Brands are something that we are immensely passionately connected to. We identify with them, we live with them, and are pretty loyal if we have fallen hook, line, and sinker in love with them. And we are continuously connected to them, and we are continuously buying them, eating them, or maybe wearing them. So that continuity is very important. The current pandemic has meant that some brands have been disconnected from us because, one, we've not been able to go outside our homes because of the lockdown. And when we do go out, sometimes we find that our brands are not available because they've been bought by the hordes who have been trying to stock up for fear of not having enough stocks in the future. But now, the lockdown is being unlocked. Several states have opened up, several cities have opened up, and some continue to be locked down partially. Some have opened up totally. India is at 107,000 infections, even as the world is racing towards 5 million. The death toll at 3,000 is at 3,300 for India and around 325,000 for the world. That's a lot of numbers, of course. But at this pace, India is moving. We are likely to hit around 160,000 by the end of May, and probably double that by June end. We have a battle on our hands. Economic activity is resuming, nonetheless. One has to take very good care over the next month or so. Also, the migrants are moving towards the hinterlands and back to their villages and small towns. That could also be a challenge for a lot of the brands who are distributing products in those areas. We don't want more deaths than are warranted on our hands because of carelessness. So I have a fabulous panel which has been associated with some great brands over the years. Amongst them, I have Parminder Singh, who worked on Leo Mattel, and he's turned entrepreneur with a company which he set up around 4 years ago. This is his last month at Mattel. Then I have Krishna Rao, who's with Pale Products, which have been doing yeoman's work during the pandemic. Then I have Shailendra, who's the head of marketing for a brand which has rode its way into the Indians' consciousness since its founder Nikhil Sen, who sadly passed away 4 months ago, set it up. Finally, we have Samyukta Iyer, who's a known face to the Animation Express audience because of being associated with as well as Krishna, of course, and Parminder as well, being associated with the Kids Animation and More Summit. So let's not waste any more time. I've spoken enough. Let's get on to the people we've come here to listen to. I'm going to pose a question to you. What's keeping you busy these days, especially the last, since the 18th of this month? What's been keeping you busy, each of you all? Can Shailin, you want to begin since you're the first in the blocks, amongst the blocks?
Yeah, sure. So this is something new normal. This is what we have been talking internally. And am I audible? Just raise hand. Yeah.
Yes.
So this is something new normal for us. And as a marketing head, we have to don a hat of that. What do we do with this new normal? So initially when the lockdown started off and it came all of a sudden, we never preempted that this is going to be that long. And with few directives of relaxations, we were pretty agile as a team, marketing as well as business. And we took those quick steps and we are trying to float. Yeah. So, and now things are getting back to the normal, and I hope that everything gets normal and in a month's time, COVID will be behind us and things will
Aren't you being optimistic?
Yes, I'm very positive because looking at the economy, looking at the consumption patterns, looking at the various ecosystem, I'm talking about the entire ecosystem. I just wish that this COVID goal is always rest behind us and we keep moving ahead and continue to do what we are planning to do right now.
So what what is keeping you busy these days? That's a question I wanted to know.
Yeah, so we are preempting few things. We are preempting few plans in terms of our product pipeline, in terms of our campaigns, in terms of what can we do, how can we be more relevant in the industry in the given situation, right? When consumers are getting more and more aware, getting more informed about the things what they want to do, right? Gone are the days that you just follow a brand and you just pick it up and start using it. Now the consumers are reading the labels. They are getting more informed. How can I be healthy? How can I be more informed? What is it? What is not? So product pipeline is one thing which we are looking at currently. How we can innovate, how we can be more relevant into the market, and at the same time, how do we take this forward given the situation when most of the stores are still not open. Even the 100% normalcy is not back, is not even back right now, right? So just right now the planning and working on a pipeline thing. Yeah.
Okay. Parmendra, you basically said this is your last month.
Yeah.
But you still you'd be busy handing over, I presume, long distance. But apart from that.
So in fact, I think this has been a period while most of the people did think about it, that COVID, and they looked at their plans or re-looked at their plans. Most of the operating plans are being redrawn by the companies. But I think it is also a time when most of the companies are using this to literally, when you can't go fishing, you are just mending your nets. And that's what most of the companies are doing. Most of the companies are re-looking at their strategy. Most of the companies are also looking at what impact will it bring. Of course, there is non-essential item business is not there currently. So I think apart from two sectors, one is the non-essential or the essential product sector, and the second is the education sector. Apart from these two sectors, most of the companies and brands are right now literally working on the strategies, on the operations, and also looking at the scenario which will be there post-COVID. So just to give you an example.
But they've opened up. Sorry, I'm interrupting you. But a lot of the sectors have opened up. In Maharashtra also.
Yeah. So say when we are talking about these, what we are very clearly seeing is that most of the companies are envisaging a shift in retail mix. So while you look at online retail and offline retail, and within offline retail, again, the organized retail, which can further now be bifurcated into standalone as well as mall-based. If you look at all those aspects, I think primarily the push is going to come to the online retail. And the way the mix is going to change for many companies, including Mattel or the toy brands, it is going to be literally a scenario where the online retail may grow by around 40-50%, while the rest of the channels will decline. Depends each company and brand. So that is one thing that most of the companies are preparing themselves to. Second is also the logistics, as they are literally, this is not a normal time. And even when the markets are opening up, there are state-wise markets. Which market do you open up? How many employees do you want to go literally? Because you don't want to risk your employees still. You want to ensure that there is that social distancing norms. Also, the rest of the part is primarily from a brand perspective. What we are currently talking about is business, and business primarily centering around sales on the shelf, or literally reaching out to consumer, or being driven by consumption. The second part is the brands are still working on scenarios where they are literally on the top of the mind of the consumers. And we have seen a huge consumption, especially on data. And literally brands are literally sharpening their plans for online and digital marketing. That's the other part that I will see at a very broad level, which is happening with most of the brands. So those are the scenarios that most of the companies are preparing and working towards. It will be a different world altogether. And if I'm looking at most of the brands which are not able to reach consumers in terms of consumption, they are very clearly focusing on how they can add value and be respected. They are also aligning to the local announcements. So we saw a slew of announcements by Prime Minister, local, vocal, and all these things are being now literally immediately, we have seen within 24 hours, a lot of brands taking that up, whether it is a kids brand like McDonald's, which now claims that, or which is running campaigns centering around the potatoes being grown in Maharashtra to onions in Karnataka, and literally that being local. And also, of course, the other local brands which are very clearly focusing on these aspects. So that's the overall landscape, I think, from brands' perspective. Everyone is working, everyone is trying to predict and trying to work hard. Scenario will not be the same. As the market opens up, market will change dramatically. Some of the companies like toy companies, will benefit because consumers or kids will not go out. They will probably stay indoors. And once you are staying indoor, what is going to very clearly happen is that your indoor games are going to go in for high consumption. In rest of the Western world, that is one area where typically we see that we have already witnessed, the toy industry has witnessed growth, and this will continue. This will happen even in India. So
fantastic. Yeah, that's a great overview you gave us, Parminder, like always. I'll move on to Samyukta. So what's been keeping you busy for the last 2 days or 3 days since the Prime Minister made the last announcement? And Maharashtra also said that they're continuing with lockdowns in Bombay, Pune, and some areas, while other areas are being opened up.
Right. So actually now I think as marketers, I think the onus has become even higher for us to understand every aspect of the business. So if even pre-lockdown, if the expectation was that, yes, you contribute to sales, whatever you do will impact what we're doing. I think now it's become even more important than ever before for you to be literally involved in every single touch point. Whether it's the way production is happening, how do you get your factories up and running? There are lots of rules that have come about in terms of if you have to open the factory, how do you even get the workers into the factory? What kind of rules you have to follow? Like Parminder was saying, even the stores, if we have to open up our stores now. So we've been operational at obviously not at full capacity because all of us have to keep tabs in terms of what's going on. Every time there's an announcement, the way people react in different zones, the way we've been divided right now, the sentiment, the mood, everything is changing. So I think even more important than ever before for us to be doing a lot of micro marketing at this point in time, keep being very, very sensitive to what's going on. So yeah, it's been a very, very, I think, very busy time. So
last 2 days and 3 days, especially since
it's been like this. I think throughout the lockdown, I think every time we have an announcement, I think everything changes. So we have to be very agile in terms of our thinking, very agile in terms of our strategy. Every day is like a new learning curve. Whatever you have learned yesterday, you have to forget the next day and restart literally. So it's been interesting. I think we're all going to emerge much stronger than what we were as marketers at the end of all of this, because there's so many new models, so many new processes that you're literally crafting on a daily basis. It's not even funny, because you have to forget so many things that you were doing in the past that you just took for granted as marketers, that we have to now change everything. So it's very interesting because, because even in terms of what the consumer now wants, there's a lot of fear. So how do you address that fear? As a brand, you need to be empathetic because we're all going through it together. And I think that messaging is what a lot of brands are putting out, and that's what is going to get us through all of this.
Great, fantastic. So, Krishna Rao. Krishna, you've been very busy, I believe, Parley. I'm one of the buyers of your hand sanitizer, which you brought out, the ethanol-based one. So that's apparently you have been trying to become a part of the essential brigade, apart from your regular soft drinks and all the other products that have come out with your biscuits as part of the whole group, the Parley group, which is, of course, Parley Biscuits is a separate company. Correct me if I'm wrong, but still, yeah. So what's been keeping you busy?
So frankly speaking, sanitizer is just an extension. Actually, I would say we have a sugar plant based out of Bairaj in UP, where it was a very, very instantaneous decision for us actually, and we happened to launch it way back in April itself. But having said that, so if you ask me what's been keeping me busy in the last 3 days, actually it's not really very different. I would rather want to sort of classify this into so April and pre-April and post-April actually. So April, March 20th onwards, I would say. So 20th till say the whole of April and May. So that journey has been a roller coaster of a ride actually. So if someone would have asked me in February, is work from home possible? I would have said, just forget about it. It's only for the IT guys. but I have actually sort of realized that it's quite possible actually to work from home, and very, very efficiently at a very, very high efficiency. And so you mentioned, so sanitizer is a very small initiative, I would say, but predominantly the biscuits business, the snacks business, the confectionery business, the bakery business, I think, so right from day one, we were very clear that it's an essential part of food essentials besides vegetables, fruits, and pulses, etc. And we were like, it was a very, very tough time till April. Actually, May onwards is when I would say we sort of reduced our con calls, we reduced our Zoom calls, and relatively we are better off now. In the last 2 or 3 days, yes, life hasn't really changed much. It's just that we have started talking about resuming office now. And quite a few of my colleagues are already in office, and I'm also looking forward to join them shortly.
Seriously?
Yes.
You're not happy working from home?
No, that definitely. So yes, I on one hand, I would say, yeah, it is very, very efficient to work from home is what I've realized. But at the same time, I think there are certain requirements where I need to be in office. I think that's important as well.
Great. So where are the challenges you see coming up, in terms of kickstarting the entire distribution pipeline, your supply chain? Do you see any challenges in that? Then we'll get on to messaging. Yeah. So could we?
Loads and loads of them.
Yeah. This is to all of you all. You can pop in once somebody finishes. You can continue discussing amongst yourself also.
Okay, let me complete. So challenges right from day one, I would say. So we formed a small what we called is COVID combat team. And so that was a little time-based name, but eventually we changed it to a combat team as a name. But the whole objective was to come together and to see how we are going to get our business back in action. So though it was stay put for a couple of days, frankly speaking, and from there on, there has been no looking back. So first and foremost, we sort of spoke to our partners, our contract manufacturers. We work with we have our 10 mother units, which are owned by Parley, and we have about 120 contract manufacturers spread across. So we had to actually activate them. So there was a lot of resistance, but then it didn't take really a lot of time for us to activate them. Next was our CNFs. So CNFs were really very, very hesitant. They said, company's gone mad, I think. When the situation is so scary, why do they want us to step out and be active here? But then still we managed to even get them active as well. And then comes the last leg, I would say important leg, which is my distributor. Now, distributors were also very, very in a sort of shell mode, wherein they were not willing to step out. But then it took us a lot of convincing, a lot of motivation, a lot of communication in terms of maintaining hygiene and all the guidelines that were sent to some manufacturing locations, to CNFs, to depots, and to distributors, and importantly to our vendors. Now, what happened is, so government said, okay, because your food and our aspect of giving away 3 crore biscuit packets was really taken up very well by the government, and that actually sort of helped us get a lot of permissions to start our factories, albeit at 50% capacities, and that happened. So actually, forget about 50%. We were struggling to get 20% of our workforce. So most of the migrant workers had already gone away, and we were struggling. But then somehow we managed to start our wheels in the factories, and then the challenge was to get raw material and packaging material. So for example, quite funny actually. So who would understand if somebody would say ki this ink is going to print a laminate which is essential for food? So these were the challenges actually. But then, so we had to get permissions. We had to give our vendors letters saying that parlay or food is a essential part, and it will require you all to provide our raw material and packaging material. So that's how we sort of mobilized our flour mills, our wheat vendors, various vendors of ours, RM and PM, and that's how we were able to start. Initial few days, few weeks, we were struggling with about 15-20% capacity, but today we are well above 75% of our capacity. So we've been able to up the ante and get going. So next was to get the transportation. So transportation was again very, very challenging. Actually, the drivers were not willing to come. The families were not willing to send them. The transporters themselves were not willing, but then we had to sort of incentivize at every level. So incentivize workers at the factories, incentivize transporters, incentivize the vendors to get the raw material, packaging material. So one would say, no, Kerala, for example, is a containment zone, so I don't want to go to Kerala. So if I have a facility in Tamil Nadu, so they were not willing to go to at a particular location. So that was challenging enough. And then eventually over a period of time, we overcame that. And the last leg was distributors. So we asked our distributors, so there was panic. Distributors started going out into the market. So they have a norm to cover about 60 shops in a day. And they sort of started covering, and then we said, no, this is not what we intend to. We want you to maintain all the norms, all the guidelines. So you need to be wearing masks, you need to be wearing gloves, you need to be maintaining social distancing, etc. All of that. So we don't want business at any cost. And that's when, so there was a reciprocation from our channel partners. And another aspect was, we asked our distributors to do counter selling. So I don't know if you would have realized, by end of March, most of the shelves in the shops were all empty, running high and dry. And we said, okay, so if there is so much of a demand actually, so because of hoarding, because of panic buying and all, so all the shelves were like running empty absolutely. And we said, okay, distributors, you have a list of phone numbers of your retailers. Why don't you call them? Call them, give them an appointment, take the orders. You have a stock, you have an inventory. So book the orders. You tell them, okay, Parle Ji itna chahiye, Crackjack, Monaco, hide and seek, whatever. So you just make a note and keep the stock ready. Bill it, keep it ready if he is doing online payment, well and good. And give him an appointment. Ask him to come at 9 o'clock. Second, retailer number 2 comes at 9:15, retailer number 3 comes at 9:30, and so on and so forth. So it becomes much easier, much planned, and much better. And that's how we have been able to sort of overcome. Next leg was, so biscuit was very, very easy to roll. So no brainer, absolutely, because Parle Ji, bread and butter of so many people, or lifeline of India, I would say. So even the health workers, policemen, so that's how we sort of routed these 3 crore packets to the government authorities. And it's not that we've been doing this we've done this for the first time. Every such situation, be it Kerala floods, the Satara floods, or Bihar floods, or earthquakes, we've been sending truckloads. Actually, we never speak about it, but then here we were sort of forced to, and that actually enlightened a lot of authorities, regional authorities, district magistrates, somewhere municipal commissioner, somewhere a district commissioner. So they were all applying their own rules, regulations, till the time the government or order or central from the center were passed on. That is when things sort of eased up. But we faced challenges for, say, snacks. So our own field force were saying, no, snacks is not a part of essentials. So I said, who told you? So it says packaged food. So there is no mention of, besides khaini, gutka, etc., tobacco. So there was nothing which was banned. So it talks about packaged food. So it took a lot of internal convincing. And then confectionery was the least. People said, "Are confectionery? Who would want to have confectionery at this point in time?" But then slowly and steadily, everything is fallen into place, and business is almost coming back now.
Oh, that was a fantastic overview again. So, Samyukta, this time, challenges that you face and you expect to face now that you're going to start kickstarting. I think you have some retail outlets in smaller towns also, which could be actually, serving customers.
Yeah. So I think you very rightly said, Krishna, that it's all started on that day, 20th of March. So it didn't actually happen in the past 2-3 days. Because I remember we were in office even the day before, and we all thought we are coming back. And we were just talking about implementing work from home and figuring out if we can come to office maybe 3 days a week, work from home 2 days a week, and it just seemed like everything just changed overnight for I think all of us. And we've become way more efficient now with all of this coming in. In terms of challenges, yeah, I mean, I still remember all our stores were shut the very next day, like the announcement happened, and we literally had like zero business, it actually just dropped down like that. To then slowly, as and when things started getting a little better, we started opening up, our outlets as and when, like you were saying, every district had its own rules. Every commissioner had their own rules.
Absolutely.
So we had to adhere, we had to understand, and it was on basis of that, even whether it was store timing. So we are there in Parlor, we are there in GT, we're there in MT. We've been there on aggregator business for the past 3 years now. We're also there on marketplaces like Amazon and Big Basket. So so we had to suddenly keep tab in terms of every city, what are the rules that are happening, where can we open up, what time can we keep it open, what kind of delivery module can we develop. So we've been working towards creating a lot of delivery, and right from how do we get our orders in, to very similar to what you're saying, obviously not at the same scale, but in terms of how do we now channelize e-commerce a lot more efficiently. How do we make online delivery a lot more simpler and faster? Because that is the new normal. Everyone is scared. Nobody wants to physically go to the store. And as marketeers, as salespeople, we need to understand that, be cognizant of that, and therefore make life a lot simpler for them. Even if somebody is stepping into your store, we've been working towards now ensuring that things like even foot pedals are ensured inside, are actually installed within our stores, so that even the sanitizer, the automatic sanitization is happening. There's a screen put between the consumer and the crew, so that there is no direct contact happening. Factories also are going to have sanitization tunnels, etc., so that the products remain completely untouched. There's no manual intervention at all. So I think at every touch point, we are creating new distribution models, we are creating new supply models, we're creating new things in terms of how do we now communicate to the consumer. I think it's been a massive change, but it's getting better slowly. Like you said, May onwards is when things started looking up a lot better. People started getting a little more, I think, braver in terms of, I think for all of us, we realized that, okay, we have to live with this. So let's figure out how do we do that. And I think as a race, we are very, very resilient. So we learn to adapt and we learn to grow. And I think our brands are no better than, like you said, you have an 11-month-old baby, Shailen. So the brand is also like a baby. So the baby also learns to then, develop, grow, figure out the new environment it is in. And we're making changes in accordance with that.
Well, thank you for that. Why am I emphasizing the last few days? Because my feeling is that India has begun to open up ever since the last lockdown. 4.0 was announced. It's a clear signal that we are responsible for ourselves. That's what the Prime Minister said also. So therefore, that's why I'm emphasizing. I think life is going to accelerate from here from onwards. Yesterday in Bombay, the Western Expressway was jam-packed, if you're from Bombay. So it was like a normal day. It's a worrying trend, of course, because that could, if people are coming out in such droves, it could lead to further infections, which it will. If you have to be flying. That's why I'm emphasizing the last 3 days, if there's any change compared to what was there for the past month and a half, 50 days. So I expect things to accelerate a lot more now. So over to Parmindra. Yours is a category which is, I think it had totally gone on lockdown.
Yeah. So it has gone completely locked down in the country. The fact is that now people, so as slowly the market opens, there is going to be a surge in terms of sales. That we will very clearly. The key challenge that I think purely that we will have is that estimating sales versus the manufacturing. So that's going to be a nightmare. Demand and supply planning is going to be a nightmare, not only for say toy industry, it will be across. While there can be an initial surge, the second challenge that I think somewhere Krishna also pointed out was the challenge on say operationalizing the factories and at what capacity and at what levels. Because most of the factories, especially on SME sector, are the factories which are run on contract labor. And right now, for example, just to give you a very broad perspective, Daman, while the factories had been opened some time back, so a couple of weeks back, the actual factory worker turnout is hardly 20 to 25%, nothing beyond that. So even if you estimate a strong demand, will you be able to manufacture, and how much of that will be there in the pipeline? The other challenge that we are foreseeing is the collection part. Because what has happened, especially on non-essential goods, while the essential goods have gone to sell on MRPs and retailers are literally now giving cash to distributors to take the stocks. For the other distribution mix, especially on toys, where the credit period is say around 60 days, they have already surpassed that by another 60 days. So what is going to happen is that there's going to be a huge cash crunch, and how much to supply credit limits need to be revised. So I think there's a lot of working that is happening. It's not that the scenario is not ordinary. It's an extraordinary or a very different situation. And it can't be turned around all of a sudden. It will happen gradually over a period of time. Luckily, most of the brands will find their space over a period of time, as Samyukta also mentioned. Because what is going to happen is, for example, the consumption of indoor toys is going to increase. So toy industry is going to gain, especially the indoor toy industry specifically will improve quite a lot. I'm sure the kids are going to force the parents to play with them. And for that, different kinds of board games, indoor games, Uno, and all that is going to come into play. So you are going to either pull out the old birthday gifts that your kids have received and open those boxes and start playing with them, or you are going to go to the market and start buying new ones. So a lot of unused stuff will also be used during this time, or has already happened. And the last bit is the factor. So when it comes to the guilt factor, I think the categories which will open up faster, because the parents, and especially both the parents working, the key challenge is that you want to buy something for the kid. So you have had enough essentials and disguised chocolates into that. But beyond chocolates and the Baskin Robbins, once the parlor opens, what you're going to do is you are also going to buy a lot of toys for your kids. And that is where probably the impact on this particular category is. But I think very clearly, if I have to just sum it up, it will be a challenging year throughout, maybe next 1 year or 1.5 years, where most of the demand and supply planning will be the big challenge for most of the companies across.
Yeah, so, in your category, we are seeing a lot of digital consumption happening. I know that a lot of, I've been playing Ludo, by the way, King Ludo.
Right.
So,
when it
from
comes
time to time,
you're right.
Children drove me to this.
Yeah, so I think
so is Mattel moving in that direction? Is Mattel moving in that direction more and more?
Yeah, Mattel also is literally capitalizing on that, but it depends on the speed at which most of the players do. Most of the gaming companies have gained quite a lot in this. Yes. And most of the brands also associating themselves or creating games around that. So we have seen huge downloads, and most of the companies are stronger and also on the digital platforms are finding that. It will also be the way forward. How do you create revenue is something some of the companies are already thinking of creating the revenue at a later stage. Some of have already started creating that, because companies, so say for example, right now we are on Zoom and Zoom is free to you. Zoom is free to all of us.
We're paying for this because it's larger numbers.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. But when it comes to the companies, so whether it is Microsoft Teams or whether it is Zoom or most of the application platforms as well. So most of them are trying to literally create a consumer base. And after a consumer base is created, they are going to ensure that the revenues flow in. For companies which are offline in toys, for example, Mattel, they already have, which is in games, they're going to literally push that, use the IP, and start increasing the revenues for a particular channel time. The consumption has increased. The impact on revenues will take time to come in.
Great. From games back again to biscuits and cookies, for precise, so Selim, your challenges and what do you see happening going forward in the next
So
20
I think the
days? What are your
challenges,
big
what has
challenges?
been, what are the challenges, what has been highlighted by Krishna Rao, more and by and large, we face the same kind of challenges. So basically, right from the getting the raw material, packaging material, getting your manufacturing up and running, getting the labors in place, your QC guys. It's just not about permanent versus contract labors. It's also about getting your QC guys who is going to develop, because we are in essential services and we can't take chances with quality and all. So we need the right kind of guys coming to your factory and doing that. uh, Even at the factory premise, what kind of arrangements we do in terms of checking those thermal temperatures, creating safe distance, still running the factory at a 20% capacity. So basically, our challenges are, if I bucket it, it is like three kinds of bucket. One is at a manufacturing level, second at a supply chain and a warehouse level, and third is at a sales level. When you have the product in your hand, but at the same time you don't have any conveyance or any logistics partner to take them to the last mile to the consumer, to the store, right? So what do we do as a brand? So a brand is produced but is not being able to supply it. So we as a what we started looking at is we formed a team inside, and we formed three teams: manufacturing, supply chain. So somebody coming from a sales background taking up adding his expertise on supply chain, collaborating with the tech-based logistic guys so that we can reach out to the store ASAP, so that shelves are not empty, we occupy, we are available, we run the show, right? That's the main objective. There's another thing which marketing we started doing. Since we can't advertise, most of the brands went off air, right? Because they don't know what to do. Do I need to advertise? Do I need to continue to do that? The one biggest thing which we started finding out, when the sales guys and the teams are sitting at home, because it's all about mindset game, right?
Yeah.
Pandemic, there is a lot of fiasco around it. So people say, I am not going out. We are not stepping out. Families are stopping. Somebody is newly married. His wife is saying that, please don't go out. You can work from home. So we understood all these challenges, whether at a factory level, premise level, or at a personal level of any employee. And we came up with a plan saying that, okay, fine, we have a backend team. We'll start doing calling. So our backend team has a list of retailers, list of distributors. We started calling. Imagine your truck has left the factory and reached a distribution point, but you do not have anybody to offload the stocks. You're stuck.
Yeah.
You're completely stuck. You have no idea what to do. So therefore, we formed a team. The team started reaching out to each and every partner and saying that, hey, look, we know there is a problem. We know there is an issue. There is a way, we need to come over it, right? Similarly, internally, we ran a campaign of COVID heroes. We extended that campaign to our distributors and retailers as well. And people were so motivated that every day we used to highlight one hero internally and we used to talk about it. There used to be all hands. In all hands, we used to praise that what this distributor has done. So you won't imagine that even in Northeast kind of states, our distributors have taken their vehicles, went out and done the distribution of our products. So what we believe that if people believe in the brand, if internally as well as externally, we try to just build that whole thing. We never pushed anybody that you should step out and get into the market, work, get sales. What we build is one thing. Unibic as a family, we need to constantly do something. We have to come up with ideas, and we kept on motivating. So we followed all the regulations. We all followed guidelines given by West Bengal and Northeast by that way. That was very strict in dealing with them. Then there was a second thing which we also worked at, that during the first few days of the lockdown, when my team was out, we saw that there are a lot of people who have nothing to eat. There are people sitting at the roadside, they have nothing to eat. There are certain localities which are below the poverty lines. People are not getting adequate amount of food items. So what we decided, we said that any truck which goes out of Unibic will have additional cases of stock with them. And if you find anybody in need of something to eat, please distribute and no questions asked. So this is something as part of the new normal. We said that let's assume that people need us, and it's always not about sales. Sales is of course very important, and business running a business operation is very important. But at the same time, at the moment when we take care of the people, just like the way I take care of my kids, if I can take care of the people outside who really look forward to somebody to come and help them, that is very important. So that was one partner. So we picked up internal campaigns. We kept driving it. We motivated people. People sitting at home were doing their typical PCs and TCs, converting your TCs into PCs and all that. So things came back to normal. Now, as a marketer, what I am supposed to think? Do I need to sit and brand needs to sit? We'll see what happens in June. So there is this plan 1, plan 2, and plan 3. What if everything comes to normal? Things are absolutely fine. There are zero cases in India, and everything is just like a bad dream, and we woke up and we started going to the office, right? Scenario 1. Scenario 2, what I've seen after I've been connected to a lot of people, I have been talking to them, understanding how the operations are running. E-commerce platform is going to boom. It's going to increase, right? I understand that in the initial few 15 days or 20 days, there was a gap when you have more orders, but you have no suppliers. You do not have delivery guys to supply, right? So what do? You change your strategy, you change your plan, and you say that, okay, fine, let's go with the show right now and start planning for the longer term that can I put if I have $100 with me, can I put $60 on e-commerce? Can I build business on e-commerce if that is the future? So those kind of strategies and these kind of work which are currently happening. What happens to media entertainment? Just imagine that entertainment industry is huge. Aviation is almost like 15 times of our FMCG biscuit category, 15 times of biscuits. What happens to those people? They are going to come back to the normal, right? Flights will start flying. People will come back to the normal. People would need something. What will happen is the change of their behavior. People, instead of walking into a supermarket or a modern trade or basically a crowded place, they would prefer to sit at home and order food on e-commerce platform, right? So these are the behavioral changes will happen. And we have done a dipstick. And what we have found that people who have never downloaded an e-com app, they have started downloading it and started, ordering food stuff from there. Out of curiosity, out of need, out of this thing. But these trends, what does it tells me? It tells me that trends are changing. The behaviors of buying will change, the consumption behavior change. When I say consumption, earlier I used to eat whatever I used to like. We as an Indian, we love to indulge, right? Whether it is samosa or whether it is a snack or a chips or a biscuit or anything, right? Now what is happening, since we are at home, there are less of physical activity. Families at home, kids are at home, physical activity is slightly lesser, right? Still, there are larger section of people who love to go out, go for a walk, jog, gym, and various stuff. Right now, you are resorting to yoga and everything. So how do you balance your life? So you are at home, you are doing certain things, you eat right, you eat healthy. So that whole concept of getting towards that being healthy or healthier is now sinking into the everyone's mind. Just to give you a data point, that health and wellness as an industry is almost around 10,000 crore. When I say industry, that itself includes your staples, your flours, your cookies, your olive oils and various dry fruits and other stuffs comes into that, right? And it is growing at a rate of almost 8 to 9% year on year. Within that, cookies has a certain percentage of it. So, and it is growing now, and it is going multifold, and it is going to be, and what health was more of a concept in the mind, now it is actually getting into the lifestyle of the people. So we at Unibic, what we are currently looking at, there are simple 2 rules. Keep your ears open and stay close to the consumer. If you're listening to your consumers and you can convert what you're listening into an insight and to something actionable, I think that is very important, and that is a game changer for anybody in any industry. So like Parminder was saying that since toys are non-essentials, and fingers crossed, I think the things should come back to the normal, because there are a lot of people who are part of this ecosystem and they are always attached to something, right? Laborers, contract laborers, seller, standalone supermarkets, whatever you call, GT, SAMT, modern trade, e-commerce, everybody is into this fold. So we can't be sitting at home and thinking a lot that things comes back to normal at 0 and we go back out. I think wherever we are, let's continue to keep pushing the cart ahead, whichever the industry we are, so that the economy comes into the role and everyone starts coming back to the normal. Sitting
Thank you
at
for
home
that.
and just thinking won't really fetch anything right now. So in last few days, we have started our planning in terms of how do we contribute in various ways, whether it is entertainment, like media plan, typical media plans. How do we come up with new products? How can we stay close to the consumer? How we can talk about it? What do we do on e-commerce? What do we do in supermarkets? Of course, challenges are there. People are not paying us. Money is getting stuck because they are not being able to rotate the products. They are investing money in what is being selling the most. So all these are the part of the ecosystem. We just need to find a way that how we sail through those ecosystem challenges and keep flying. That's the whole point.
Listening to all of you all, I feel the role of the marketer has gone beyond just marketing today.
Yeah.
I mean, if you have any response from you all to that, it's not just understanding, nurturing the brand. It's also understanding the whole ecosystem of the manufacturing, understanding people, understanding within the organization, understanding your supply chain, understanding it's marketer is not just simply a guy who nurtures the brand.
Gone are the days where we used to sit in one cabin or maybe a cubicle and used to plan our marketing plan, saying that $100 spent on TV, radio, outdoors, and digital and all this. Now, this is a high time that even a marketer should have to. I'm seeing a lot of people are already there. I'm not putting the status quo, but definitely this is the change of the time. You have to get your hands dirty to understand every aspect of the business. If you don't know each and every aspect of the business, I think it is just like a chain reaction, right? You drop something and you miss something. Yeah. If I don't know how many people are working, if I don't know who is the guy at the shop floor is really putting his heart and soul to produce tons of cookies, and if I'm not being able to take care of him, motivate him, appreciate him, I'm actually missing the bus.
Absolutely. Yeah. What about the rest of you all? Do you think the marketing has to go beyond, and this pandemic has re-emphasized that, and doubly anyone wants to take a shot at it?
Absolutely. I think, yeah. So as it is, marketer's job was always to go beyond, not beyond pure marketing, and to understand every aspect of the business. I think, yes, this pandemic has actually pushed us on the edge, and we are I think supposed to play a bigger role from the overall business perspective. So at every channel, so as it is, we are a servicing department to the sales, but there are times wherein actually we need to shake even our sales, because they might be sort of going in a wrong track on a certain path, for that matter. So right from there to mobilizing the entire ecosystem, I think is definitely there is an extra I would say extra leverage that one needs to put and to tie in the entire ecosystem. I would definitely lay a lot more emphasis on that.
Yeah,
I
see,
agree.
in levers, almost everyone goes through the sales and distribution function.
Right.
You look at all the major leaders,
Absolutely.
and then even if then they go into marketing. Yeah. So in terms of, do you believe that the role is being redefined a lot more thanks to the pandemic?
It's just
Samyukta.
become, I think it's become a lot more enhanced because the role of the marketer today is to kind of almost become like the glue that keeps the entire ecosystem running. Because you're literally the only person or the only department that is actually expected to know, right from has the RM reached, PM reached, to has the stock reached the consumer, to like, every single, to like you were saying, even motivating the sales team in terms of assuring them that we'll ensure that everything is taken care of. And I think you're playing the role of a counselor, you're playing the role of a mentor, you're playing the role of a strategist. You're also getting your hands dirty on a daily basis. So yeah, I think those lines have all blurred a lot more. Like it's always been like that, but I think now is the time for all marketers to literally step up, be on the front line, and actually do a bit. Like there's no going back now.
Yeah, Parmendra, from your side?
So, in fact, right now, most of the companies are looking at revision of numbers, and most of the companies have revised their numbers, especially non-as categories, the negative side, which also means that every company is having a hard look at the P&L. And when you are having a hard look at the P&L, the expenses that you typically go in for cuts includes the SG&A. And while there will be companies that keep on investing, but it also depends on the cash situation of any company. Given the current scenario and the scenario, the fact is that marketing is always seen as to aiming to build and take the business further from a growth level. While this year is a year where non-essential many companies, it's difficult to match their last years. So that's why there will be that much more onus, and that's why marketing, I think, somewhere is trying to ensure that every dollar that they spend, they are able to find value and create value for the company. That to automatically seep in. Being a tough year, that's why marketeers are now going out of their way even to literally ensure that the delivery happens for the company.
Yeah. So in terms of your planned launches, summer is gone for you, Samyukta. So some of the new variants you must have planned, some promotions, all of you would have planned. Pale would have planned some things. So what does that do to your entire, product launch plan, your marketing plans going forward? What does it do, and how will you adhere to that? Do you wait for the October months?
I think for all of us, it's very difficult to preempt what's going to happen next. When we got into the lockdown on 20th of March, that was literally the beginning of summer for us. Ice cream industry in general lives on seasonality. I mean, right now we're in the mid of May. So it's been very difficult to kind of preempt what's going to happen tomorrow because every day is changing. So which is why I think, everything that we've been discussing so far just comes into force even stronger than ever before, because you just have to be prepared for various scenarios, saying that, okay, if everything's fine, I think, Shailen, you were mentioning, if everything goes back to normal, then this is what you'll do. If things are like semi-normal, this is what you'll do. If nothing goes back to normal, this is what you'll do. So right now, I think we are constantly donning that hat of a strategist and saying, okay, these are the models. And you're constantly preparing. You're not even preparing for a future now. You're literally living for the present to say, okay, today this is what is going to happen. Let's get up and running with these things. So I think it's very difficult to preempt. If things go off very well by October, then obviously I think all of us are going to be in a very good situation. But otherwise, we'll sail through. I mean, no matter what, we'll have to trudge on. Like there's no.
So are we all seeing? I mean, I'm just. Let's hope.
Yeah,
we reach the peak. We reach the peak by June 15, June 30th, and then we start on the downward trend. We have another month of recovery. So September, October, is it going to be big bang month for brands and big bang September, October? Are you all, all of y'all, do you all foresee that?
So Anil, just one question. When will you go to the mall next?
That is a question which I think, well, I've been to Star Bazaar, which is actually a grocer. Today I was coming past Link Road in Bombay. I saw Reliance Digital, their stores. I saw TV sets being lit up. Malls may not open for a while. I don't see them opening till maybe mid-June or June sometime. Mid-June, I think. No, end June is what I think they'll start opening up. End June, especially in places like Mumbai. I'm being a soothsayer.
So now it all depends on how much does modern trade contribute to a particular category. There are certain categories where it is low as 10%, and there are certain categories where it is as high as 40 to 50%.
Yeah.
So I think the question that you have posed to us, it primarily, I don't think there's a magic wand to it. Because there are a lot of things that need to happen before the confidence builds in terms of going and taking those, going out and buying those products, or literally saying that, okay, fine, even if I'm going out, my family will still be safe, come back. Yeah. So from a consumer sentiment perspective, it will take a while the market open by, say, August, September, and the malls might even open by that time, going by the current trends across the globe. But the is that the consumer pickups or the footfalls still be low, although I'm sure will be very high. So someone who will entering the mall will definitely go in for shopping, and window shoppings will no more probably exist for some time, at least another quarter or so. So I think difficult to answer specifically, but it is a very category specific question. It is a question.
I was actually asking the ice cream lady. Because that's a second smaller summer season that we have. Pre-winter.
So that I think they also have a personal agenda. So we can ask Samyukta, when are the parlors opening next?
Yeah.
Parlors are delivering on Swiggy and Zomato if you want to order.
Oh, fantastic! That messaging we didn't know. We didn't know this. I mean, it's a great thing you brought it out here.
I brought it out because I was asked specifically. I wasn't promoting.
You should promote your brand. That's the marketer's prerogative. So since when did you start the Swiggy and Zomato delivery?
So we've been on Swiggy and Zomato for the past...
Sorry.
No, I'm sure Zomato will be happy. So
are you seeing offtake?
Yeah, we have been seeing like online, I think in general, because people are not going to stop consuming. And at the end of the day, when they know that, the brand is safe, the brand is hygienic, it's following all the norms and processes. And I think we are lucky because all the brands that are there today, whether it's Mattel or Unibic or Parle, there is a very high level of trust. And I think right now is the time we are actually seeing the consumer's faith and trust in the brand being extremely high. And I think we are lucky because there is a lot of brand love that is there for each of these brands. So people are definitely calling for things online, but of course there is that issue of not being able to deliver in many places because because of the lockdown norms, etc. Again, supply to certain places has been tough. Certain places have been a lot easier. So those are the kind of challenges that we are facing. But definitely online is something that's here to stay. It's not even the future or anything. It's a business that everybody will have to look at very, very carefully, and it's something that everybody will have to be a part of.
So I'm going to come to the online discussion in another 5 minutes. I want to talk to you about brand love. Do you think brand love has been kind of hardened a bit or softened a bit in terms of consumers not getting the product and then moving to local variations?
Getting a lot of brand love. Like our engagement numbers on social media have never been higher. We've also... so that's what, I think times like this, trying times like this becomes like a litmus test also for even a brand to understand where it stands in the consumer's mind. And I think, it's been good in the sense that we know that, okay, we matter, we make a difference to the consumer's life. And that's been a very, very beautiful journey for us in that sense. Of course, everything else has been very, very tough, but that's one aspect that we've been very, very happy with in general.
Okay, what about Krishna and Shailin and Parvendra?
So brand love is, so I see brand love in two ways, right? So if you see during the lockdown, so whatever we had produced in the month of March, we pushed it out during the lockdown period, and we ate that, right? So, as I mentioned in my previous thing, staying close to the consumer and listening to them, that what they are doing and observing them. So you would see in our portfolio, there are a couple of brands which are more towards the healthier side, right? It's purely towards healthier, which is multigrain, ragi, and daily digestive kind of brands. You would see that people have started picking up those brands. Now this has happened because of, there are no products in the shelf. So people have started doing. So I look at two aspects, trialist and loyalist, right? So during the pandemic time, during the COVID lockdown time, this pandemic has created trials, and whatever was there on the shelf got moved, people consumed, and they came back and looking forward to it, saying that, okay, hey, I did not try this thing. Can I get this more? Yeah. So one is that trials. So if a brand is being able to generate trials, it converts into loyalists. Now it's very important that once the lockdown gets open, now as a brand, as a marketer, as a team, as a business operation, we need to keep our eyes open and see that what happened to those trials which got generated during the lockdown time. Is it going to come back to you? If it comes back to you, that you have converted a trialist into a loyalist, and those people who have continued to consume you have moved from a loyalist to evangelist. So
Oh,
this is what
evangelist,
I
lovely.
see. Yeah. So this is how I see brand love from the consumer point of view. Apart from, yes, definitely people keep posting on Instagram, Facebook, they tag us saying that, yeah, this is good, that is good. And frankly, no dollar spent in terms of getting those tags and crowdsourcing videos and photos from those people putting up on the stories, right? So I think that's very important for any brand, that if you have been able to generate trials, keep an eye and see whether those trials are converting into loyalists or
Yeah.
not.
And most of it have been not communicating a lot. I think Parley has been communicating somewhat through different media, through television, but I don't think Mattel has been, I don't think Unibic has been doing some communication on
We
air.
were,
But yeah. But
yeah.
so despite that, the brand love is the trialists coming in, moving on to loyalists, moving on to evangelists. So anyway, your comments on the brand love aspect and then the communication part, and finally we'll go on to the online. Before I let you all go, we have to discuss online. So one is the brand love, is what we,
So, from Mattel perspective, I think the brands are pretty iconic, and it becomes the part of the child's life, and that's why you see that there's a continuous innovation. So it's not only about buying a new one; you still have one at home, and you are still getting those posts, and you are still following those posts. So, but what has happened is, for example, there has been a slight shift. While Samyukta was talking about delivery through, say, Zomato and Swiggy. The fact is that Swiggy and Zomato have now also changed their model to ensure that they liaison with Krishna and Shalane, and now literally catering to eventual services. So what is happening is most of the companies are evaluating their business models. So for example, at Mattel, what happens is all of a sudden the card games have seen a huge surge. May not be in terms of numbers, but we are very clearly seeing that in terms of online traction and the games around that. So just to give you an example, Uno has literally hit through the roof. It's such a simple game to play, and it's you may not go out and still buy another Barbie, but still Uno is something that you will love to have. It involves, engages a lot more family members, and there's that father child and even the entire family play which comes in together. So looking at those aspects, I think for each one of us, and so just to give you another example, somewhere Shalin spoke about the trials. So trials, depending on, of course, the availability, whether it is digitally or non-digitally. So as a consumer, I have literally tried one of the chocolates which I would have never tried again. And probably now, the reason is, of course, that right now the basic thing is the necessity. You're not getting a chocolate in the shop, so you pick up whichever you are getting. And then if you're liking it, you will continue to build with it. And without naming the brand, I think the fact is that we really loved it as a family, and we are now continuously consuming. So a lot depends on what the overall dynamics are. But I think most of the companies, so for example, for Mattel US, is one market where you will see a lot of things that we are saluting the COVID heroes and stuff like that. And that the specific reason is it also depends on the market. It also depends on what every organization, where the focus is, and while the focus continues to be on India also, but given the lockdown, there the essentials include toys. So if you're opening the supermarket, the toys as a category is also available to the consumer. Unlike India, where you don't have that. So here the essentials will not have a toys. So there are no toys to be found in the grocery or a kirana store. So that's why the challenge in India is quite unique as compared to that over there. So looking at all those aspects, I think the investments will come in later. Right now, the investment from an Indian perspective is limited. There are shifts we're very clearly observing. There will be very clear benefits that will once the market opens.
Great. So what is your entrepreneurship instinct journey going to be like now? What are you going to offer? I'll move on to Krishna after that. What do you intend to do after you leave Mater?
So the Dream Rovers Private Limited, or the organization has been in the stationery business, and it's the brand called Pugs, which is primarily centering around the coloring range. Apart from that, it is also a marketing consultancy. So what we have seen is that across in terms of marketing and literally understanding the different pillars. So we have a panelist of marketeers over here, but I'm not sure how many of us really think licensing also as an integral part of that, and whether we want to take a promotional approach to it or strategic to it, taking care of all those aspects. So this primarily center around the marketing consultancy as well as the kids products with the right kind of niches as we move around.
Yeah, so you've got a great customer in Unibic. He's got that, who's your mascot? Ubo. What do you call it? Ubo. Ubu. So you've got a great...
Ubu means Unibic and you.
Okay. Unibic and you. Okay. So we've got a great potential partner here where you can license it to T-shirts, license it to compass boxes.
Yeah. Sure.
So you reach out to each other and do business.
Even the kid at the college is...
Yeah. We discussed this at the Kids Animation and Most Summit last year.
We did.
So therefore, Samyukta, I'm not asking you any questions around that. But
Dream Goal would be concerned now.
No, in terms of Krishna, your as we talked about brand love being there being a disconnect, in the sense I picked up any product. Will I go back to that product? I tried Unibic. Will I go back to the other digestive, Britannia digestive? I don't know. How do you get back the love?
So it's actually my observation has been similar actually. So what has happened is in sometime around the end of March and April, our team, we have been having regular meetings and we've been asking each one of them to give a feedback format store, and we have been studying what's available on the shelf. So there are two ways, not to demean any brand. So, but then there was a certain brand which was available, and we were a little surprised. And we said, "How is that possible?" So, but then when we started flipping the brand and started observing the PKD or manufacturing date, we found that they were all packed either in December 2019 or Jan. So clearly indicating that they were slightly slow-moving products, which were making way into the market. So when the fast moving had disappeared, and subsequently now, any moment if you and Unibic being one such brand which you are able to find new PKD, March, April, May PKD. So which is a commendable thing, I must say, Shailen. And it's a clear thing. Now if you were to look at any brands on the shelf, you will see that there is every possibility. It is sitting on the 20th of May. There is a very high chance for you to find a Parle-G which is packed, which is manufactured on the 15th of May, 10th of May, a Crackjack, a Monaco. So that's one. So what has happened is exactly like Parminder mentioned about the chocolate example. So there have been cases. So consumers have been forced to buy whatever is available. So there is no choice. Whatever is left, you have to pick up. And possibly if you find it to be good, then you have a consumer knocking at you. And so that's one thing that I would say. As far as new product launches, you mentioned earlier. So though we have sort of deferred a few of our launches for various reasons, well known actually, like labor related issues, etc., and all of that. But certain flavors under one of our brand called Full Toss, which we had almost processed, and only the laminate was to reach the manufacturing location. And it happened, it reached ultimately during by mid-April. And once we launched it, the kind of response that we generated is amazing. It's called Thai Sriracha. That's a new flavor. And Thai Sriracha is garnering amazing response. My team is kicked. Their morale is really high. They are saying this brand is going to sail us through a 20-25% growth rate throughout the year. So only this flavor we have, besides like 3. So my point here is, I think this is also an opportunity to many. Yes, it depends upon category to category, but this is the time for certain categories to innovate. This is the category, and this is the time where I have seen that many of our small brands have been able to turn the tide and up the ante and conquer a lot of share. And at the same time, there have been lots and lots of strong brands which have lost out. So there have been corporates which have been sitting quiet, sitting idle, not doing much for weeks together, as a result of which they have lost out. So I think this is a game-changing scenario, and normally this would not have happened. So I think this is a very, very good opportunity for brands to think well, to innovate, and to conquer mind space, consumers' mind space.
Thank you for that. Now, coming to communication and the media, are we going to see a drastic change since, and we'll come to the online emerging as a very, very effective purchase area where consumers will go rather than brick and mortar. So whoever wants to take it up, I don't want to talk too much. I want you all to talk.
And I'll just complete this quickly.
Yeah.
So though we had a couple of campaigns lined up, but then we sort of pushed them. This was sometime during April. But instead, what we did was we came up with a general COVID film, stay home, stay safe, just to be in touch with our consumers, just to have the presence. And also, so what we did was when we briefed our creative partners, so they said, okay, instead of now it's difficult time to shoot, can we actually create a mashup of our previous ads? So we actually chose different brands and shots which were indoors, and we sort of stitched them through to come up with a very, very interesting piece of communication, which talked about let's catch up with life. And we all spoke about Uno. Actually, it's a daily ritual at my home. Every day night before going to bed, we play, at least we spend 1 hour, actually, the entire family playing Uno. It's really a fun time. But we felt so when we gave this theme, let's catch up live, I think it means like, so you get a great time to bond with your family, you get more time to spend, and it's a wonderful feeling, I would say. So, and this is all a very, very unique kind of an experience for all of us, actually. We've never been like, all together for almost a period of 60 days now. So another thought was, so initially we thought of this being a digital film, and then from there we felt, oh, this film has come out well. Why don't we put it on air? Because news, movies, music are doing as it is well. So why don't we actually sort of use those channels? And as we progressed, we also felt that there was this industry, who is a close partner to us, is in struggle. So there are lots of broadcasters were struggling, were really having a tough time, actually, because of lack of content, the numbers going down, and several other reasons. So we felt this is our way to sort of support them. So can we actually support? So we don't expect sales. So it's a corporate film, actually. We've shown 3 or 4 brands, actually, in a very subtle manner. It's like not very overt. But the idea is not to generate sales. Sales is happening, actually. Frankly speaking, there is 3x demand in the market. So, and we are not able to cope up with the kind of demand that is there. But so it's not about generating demand, but it's just about supporting. And besides, digital work is ongoing. So continuously across brands, we've been doing a lot of digital work.
Yeah, so I'm just going to throw a little thing before we move on to the rest. Amul has emerged as the most recognizable brand in India today. Yes, no.
Yes.
Thanks to the fact. Yes. What about the rest? Amul.
In fact, the chocolate that I spoke about comes from Amul. So,
okay.
what is happening is, of course, people, especially in metros, are also looking at, even within essentials, the brands and the trust factor that is going very high. So you really don't want brand which is, say, a number 3 or a number 4. Of course, it depends on availability as well. But if they are able to cater to, most of the people are strengthening the brands which are already very strong. And in this process, smaller brands are also getting slightly sidelined, I will say, and which will also continue to happen over next 5-6 months from a consumer standpoint.
Yeah, Amul, number one, anyone? The most recalled brand.
There's no doubt about that. Yeah, did you guys tried Amul Haldi milk? I just heard that it's just flying off the shelf.
Wow.
Amul Haldi. Yeah.
No, I haven't.
It's just flying. I have not. I'm just looking forward to it. If the moment I get it, I'm going to try it out. But I think it's available in Mumbai, so you guys
look it up.
Get a chance to.
I think, Shaleen, it has to do with the health and wellness industry that you spoke about earlier.
Yeah.
And turmeric having those benefits.
Absolutely.
And now all of a sudden, consumers want to build it over next few weeks itself. Although it's a continuous process.
I'm just wondering, I think.
So coming down to communication part in terms of. So now and going forward.
But I love the fact. That the health which was always there in the mind is now just getting as part of our lifestyle. I think that's a very positive sign for a brand like Unibic.
Yeah.
And for all those brands who are into this category.
Yeah. So last comments on that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think we've extended the time. So two things. One is communication going forward. And secondly, the explosion in digital distribution for products which were not normally available on e-commerce platforms. Any thoughts from you all on these points? Samyukta, want to take a shot? Krishna, you want to take a shot? Shailin, Parminder, take shots each of you.
Yeah, it's okay. So I'll go. So like I already mentioned. So I think we are already contemplating to start advertising of our regular brands because So Anil, I didn't know that Western Express way was jam packed. I am on the central part, but I'm not yet started going to the office. In all likelihood, I'll start going from next week. But having said that, the feedback that I am receiving is almost things are like so almost returning to normal, and somewhere people and generally are coming to terms and accepting the fact that we'll have to live with it, and life must go on. We cannot stay for more than 2 months is already a very, very long period, and it might be another month or so possibly in certain parts of the country, but life must go on. So as we are talking about optimistic thinking, we are looking at going ahead with our plans as far as advertising is concerned. So that's one. And second is digital. Definitely there has been an extraordinary push on digital because that's the easiest to sort of execute. There are agencies sitting at home coming up with brilliant idea. I'll give you an example. Modi ji sort of gave a speech, and in the next half an hour, between 8 to 8:30, before actually even, so our agencies came up with certain options like 20 lakh crore for 2020. So we have a brand called 2020, and they were like vocal for local and several of those. And I'm sure there are many brands which have done. So this is like movement marketing, and you have Eid coming in, you have Mother's Day which has happened. There are several other occasions coming in. So marketers actually are sort of trying to make use of a talking point. So they just want a pretext. And what better than such occasions to speak to your consumer? So there's no harm, and especially when consumer is full on dedicated, focused, and looking at the smaller screen or a large screen for that matter. I think this is the most opportune time to speak to the consumer a language which is relevant, which is apt for that consumer. And hence there is definitely a huge spurt. Digital, social media for sure, YouTube, Google, OTT, and of course we have a partnership with all of these guys, Grofers, Big Basket, so advertising on those platforms as well. So
great. What about Parmindra and Samyukta and Shailin?
So in fact, sorry, Samyukta, please go ahead.
Go on.
No, please.
No, you started. Don't worry.
Okay, so from a communication standpoint, I think I think there will be a herd mentality on literally laying communication over Corona. That is something that brands need to be wary of, and there will be some brands which will be wary of that because a lot of brands are going to use that. So that is one aspect purely from a creative standpoint. That the second thing that probably also needs to be looked at is how are you if you are looking at a communication which has slightly gone into the cold for 3-4 months, and there are certain category, it will also be category dependent. How do you again go back and connect with the consumer? Creatives will need to be very extremely strong. I think a lot of work for the creative agencies over there. The second part is that, of course, there will be some brands who will continue to invest. There will be many companies who will be cutting on advertisement expenses. And that's why the media plans will typically be as, but they will have to be far sharper enough, is what I envisage maybe in next 1 year or so. The last bit, which is whether digital, I think most of the companies have already started focusing and building on it. And they have, I think it has been a trend for the last 5 years. Most of the brands which are literally there, and now because most of the companies are also sales driven, so they will see the channel contribution up, and hence this pie is going to increase quite a lot. From a consumer standpoint, it has to, because most of the consumers, especially the kids as consumers, they literally are consuming so much of data. I think the next good peak is going to come as the lockdown has opened, is into the sales of laptops and mobiles and other accessories, tabs, because literally now every kid at a home is owning one. And that has become a necessity. And when you own a tab, then you can't stop a kid from downloading XYZ app. So that is something which is going to happen. So a lot of advertisement has to shift over there, because while this may open up gradually, schools will be the last to open. And if we are talking about kids marketing, we have to reach them, and we have to reach them through digital prima facie, of course, followed by the regular, which will be the content being aired on OTTs, which is again gaining a lot of importance, especially in metros, followed by, of course, the normal TV networks.
Fantastic. Samyukta, because she was, and we'll end with Shailin then. I've kept you on longer than I told you, but it's been a wonderful conversation.
Completely agree with what Krishna said and what Parminder said as well. It is going to be, if we were to pick digital as a channel for supply, as a channel for distribution, as a channel for, like you were also rightly saying, that Zomato and Swiggy are also now getting into Kirana stores, they're getting into MT, they're getting into everything. They're getting into Big Basket, Amazon kind of models as well, because everything's evolving. So everybody is part of everything actually at the moment. So digital now is going to become the norm in terms of whether it's for supply, whether it's for delivery, whether it's for distribution, and of course communication. The communication wave has been around, and I think we've all been part of that bandwagon, but this is something that everybody is slowly getting acclimatized to and is going to get on board, kind of a thing. In terms of when you speak purely from a communication perspective, you rightly mentioned OTTs are like huge right now. The TV as a medium is doing very well because people have a lot more time in terms of consumption of TV and OTTs. Of course, there are certain other things like print, etc., has kind of like disappeared because of all of this. So there's a lot of new things that are happening on a daily basis. Digital, I think, because people are spending more time the only way to keep your brand relevant is if your content is good. There is absolutely no compromise that can be made on that on that front. So I think digital content and anybody who can create good content is going to survive this very, very well, because people want to be engaged. People have more time than usual. So people are evaluating things a lot more clearly, a lot more concisely, because you have a lot of mind space also available to you, which is why things like gaming and all are doing extremely well at the moment. And I think lastly, we will have to learn to be, as marketers, as brands, be very, very empathetic, because that's the only way, because we're all going through it. As people, we are going through it. As families, we are going through it. The brand is no different. Your consumer is no different. So I think a lot of love, a lot of empathy, a lot of assurance from the brand's end. I think more than sales, if we will have to focus on becoming a lot softer. I think Anil, you were mentioning, have brands become harder, softer kind of a thing. I think brands will have to become a lot more. It will have to play like a father figure, mother figure, like a sibling. It will have to play all of those roles, to stay in touch with the consumer on a daily basis. So I think, yeah, that's what is going to continue.
Yeah, so one thing which I said, TV has never seen more consumption than it has seen during this lockdown. That may continue after the lockdown too. So you're mentioning digital, but TV is something which you are being not that enthusiastic about.
Yeah. Again, I think that's a function of budgets and a lot of other things, like, digital kind of lends itself to being easier in that sense. Otherwise, TV is also, you're right, all of the data showing us that TV and digital are being consumed at very high levels right now than ever before.
Yeah. So Shailen, you'd like to?
So in my view, advertising is very relative right now. As Samyukta has also said, that depends on what you are doing, right? So first of all, it's what your brand stands for, right? Whom do you cater to? Who is your target audience? Like, I understand right now there is like rightly mentioned by Raminda, he said people are sometimes brands are getting into that herd mentality of COVID and various other stuff. Everybody is just trying to shout at the top of their voice and trying to be seen, heard, engaged. This is how we measure engagement, right? So in my view, a brand needs to work with the one fundamental thing is that what you are, who's your target audience. Based on that, you select your battles, whether it is TV, whether it is digital, whether it is radio, whether it is out of home consumption or anything. Within that digital, in TV I've seen I've been watching one channel. I've seen Hajmola coming back. The some 40 years old ad is coming back and running here. Very nice. But in the today's time, does it relevant? Is it relevant? I'm not questioning that part. I don't wanted to pinpoint it. But it's good to see old brands coming back. And as a marketer, I love watching ads. I really love watching ads. So coming to the point is that what you need to do is you have to have your game plan right. You can't be going and splattering the whole world and showing your ads out there. You can't be taking like some 10,000 GRPs and working on those kind of level, right? You have to be precise. You have to choose your battle. You have to advertise there at that point of time. Who is going to give me the bang for the buck? This is going to be the mantra for the 2021. Bang for the buck. If I'm putting $100, am I getting what is output I'm getting? Whether it is a TV, whether it is a digital, or it can be anything. Now coming back to the digital, as you rightly picked up, this year estimated digital spends in FMCG industry is going to be 18,000 crores.
Wow.
And people are shifting their monies from various other platforms to put it here. So my question is that while this seems to be a bigger thing, I think somewhere it is you need to have a ROI model. Like as I said, do you put $100 on digital? Are you getting 200, $250 back? Then put that. So while you create the noise, you create awareness, you create engagement at the same time, are you getting the ROI? Because somewhere in the discussion, we also discussed that brands, companies, industries are going to be very cautious in terms of spending money, because sooner or later I'm seeing that in 3 months' time, all the companies will start having a reserve, which will be called as something exigency reserve. In today's time, none of the company was prepared from the terms of that, okay, what pandemic happens and I have to pay salaries, 6 months, I have to pay salaries, 100% salaries to the employees. So those kind of things will be discussed in the boardrooms. Those things, if not getting discussed, I am actually putting out that I've seen a lot of people losing their jobs, right? I've been getting requests, and I've been seeing this. So high time that a marketer needs to lead the battle from the front in terms of how does he spend the money, how do he gets the share of voice. Of course, there are a lot of people are competing the same share of voice and trying to be vocal is the local and getting heard and all that. I think stay with your game plan, continue with your game plan, and just keep supporting your team front line to get the bang for the buck and increase your bottom line so that anything in future happens, you are able to sail through it. So my point is that spend cautiously, but very selectively, be choosy. Like you are being very selective about what kind of shirt you wear or what kind of jacket you wear. Be choosy in terms of the selection of your media rather than splurging money, so that you have a good amount of reserves at the bottom line, so we can take care of our front lines for the next 6 months, 7 months. And I wish that this gets over as we speak and we are back to the normal. This is my 2 words on this.
Thank you very much. And in the next year, we'll see a lot more products. We'll see biscuits, a lot more biscuits being sold on Amazon, Flipkart.
So in fact, to be more relevant, when we were just thinking that what we should be talking about, should we be talking about Corona or should we be talking about localism? People are looking at. So we got a good response on our one of product, which is oatmeal daily digestive. It's a mix of wheat bran and rolled oats. And we saw good traction, and we spoke internally with the business team. Hey, what if I start advertising this product on a digital? Like, we have to be empathetic with our partners in terms of spending. So currently our campaign is going on in terms of digital and e-commerce. We are talking about our oatmeal digestive offering. Why? Because there are 2 reasons. One, there is a response, there is a demand from the market. 2, we would wanted to make more people aware about what are the goodness of this particular brand or product and why they should be eating it. So in a way, I'm actually, as a brand, we are actually talking to the consumer to whom we need to talk. And at the same time, we are spending money. We are putting the money back into the ecosystem. The money is rolling, and hopefully everything comes back to the normal. So these are some bigger aspects we need to look at.
Thank you very much. It's been a fabulous session for me. You'll have got some, talked about trends which have happened in the past, trends we can look forward to in the future, and you'll have given a lot of food for thought to all our viewers. Thank you to each one of you for being a part of this session and sparing these 1 hour, 45 minutes for, discussing this. Thank you very much. Have a great evening and wish you lots of success. Hopefully the cyclone in Assam and in Orissa and Bengal is not that hard today. We hope it slows down.
Yes,
we just So have a great evening, all of you. Thank you and goodbye to all of you.
Thank you so much, Anil.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Parminder, and all the best for your new venture. And Samirta, I'm really looking forward to the Belgian chocolate. I'm really going to go and that experience of going to the store and eating itself is a different.
Most welcome.
Thank you. Bye. See you.
Bye, Krishna.
Thanks. Bye. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.